Let's start with Dave Dog, and he says, "Hey, can you predict the Raiders' wins and losses?"
I think it's a scuffle because I don't think they know that if they've got a quarterback. Gardner Minshew is a bit of a gunslinger. I liked him when he came out, but he throws TDs and he makes plays and he turns the ball over a lot. And I don't know what to make of Aiden O'Connell. He manages games. He played okay for a couple of games, and then they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. So, the Raiders, I think, have got a monstrous quarterback issue. And now if they get a quarterback who can play, they're going to be dangerous because they got Devontae Adams and they got Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. And they got a second-year tight end out of Notre Dame, Michael Mayers. And they've got the ex-New England Patriot guy, Jacoby Myers, is the other wide receiver. They got skill guys to distribute the ball too. But they don't have Josh Jacobs, the heavy-duty do-everything running back. He's gone to Green Bay. They got a young running back, Zamir White, out of Georgia, power guy, but he's never, ever done it. And have they solved their offensive line problems? That's another mystery because they haven't protected their quarterbacks dating back to Derek Carr very well at all. So it's a little early to project. We will do an NFL preseason evaluation, and we will predict who's going to go where. At least I will. I don't know about him. But we'll do that right as we get to the end of August before the regular season starts. But take the logo off the side of the Raider helmet, the pirate with the patch. Mm-hmm. Just put a question mark or put the letter Q on the side of the helmet because Tom Telesco, the new general manager with Antonio Pierce as the coach, they still got to get answers. So I don't think we're going to know for the next 3 preseason games.
Yeah, the helmet with the question mark reminds me of that old Three Stooges episode.
Yes.
Remember? I think that was Moe's number. But, Raider Nation is still so fired up. And the response on Instagram to the vertical videos that we're doing, they're convinced that they're going to be over 500. They're going to be contending in the playoffs. And you know what? As a still, I am a Raider fan. They're my number 3 team. I grew up with Ken Stabler and that whole group in the 70s. I'd love to see the Raiders good again, but I still don't think they're going to be better than 500.
Who's a quarterback? Is the quarterback going to make plays? I mean, they may not have liked Derek Carr at the end, but Derek Carr was a pretty damn competitive quarterback that helped them win games. Mm-hmm. But they got so many holes, and it's taken so long. I do think their defense is going to be much better. I think the acquisition of Christian Wilkins, massive defensive tackle who's very quick off the ball. I mean, why Miami let him get out the door stuns me. But getting Christian Wilkins to go with Max Crosby, and if last year's number 1 pick, a young defensive end on the other side, can stay healthy and actually get on the field, and they've got one other pass rusher that's pretty good by name of Malcolm Kuntz, they'll be better defensively up front. But they got to who's going to make the plays for them when they have the football themselves. So only time will tell as to what they're going to be able to do. I do think Minshew probably winds up being the quarterback, but there's such a history of turnovers there. They drive coaching staffs crazy. That's why he's been with 3 teams now.
There have been moments when Minshew has looked fantastic.
Exactly.
And where I thought he was by far the best backup quarterback in the league. But, you're a big fan of Telesco. And so he's out there, boots on the ground looking for some talent.
He needs another draft. And they may have to draft another quarterback too. O'Connor played very well at Purdue, and he was marginally competitive with the Raiders, trying to manage games at the end of the year when they had all those injuries. But, a year ago this time, we're talking about Garoppolo being the Raider quarterback, and there's a solution to the problem, and it obviously
Jimmy G.
Yeah, it wasn't. Thank you for the Raider Nation call. Go ahead, John.
All right, let's go here to William. He says, "Hello, Hacksaw. Peyton said all rookies are at the bottom of the depth chart, even drafted at number 12.
Well, the fact that he took so many, we're talking about the Broncos, and we're talking obviously about Bo Nix. The fact that he was drafted and then he took a ton of snaps with the number 1 unit through all the OTAs, those 3 OTA sessions, then the veterans minicamp, he was running with the number 1s. And then to put him number 3, maybe, like I said, maybe they're going to play Zach Wilson and come to a conclusion, that's not our guy. So now we'll step aside and we'll have Stidham versus Nix. I would think if John and I are betting beers, you'll be buying me beer. I think Bo Nix will be the starter come opening day. But if that's the case, why isn't he playing a lot of snaps in preseason? At least the first preseason game, he's 3 on the depth chart.
This is strategy for Peyton, I'm sure, to try to get under Bo Nix's skin a little. But, it's also old school where, we're not going to let these rookies, go to the front of the line. We got our veterans. And so, Bo Nix, I agree with you. He'll be the quarterbacking.
On we go. Next question.
Let's go here to Tim. He goes, it's hard to believe that it'll be 30 years since the Chargers' lone Super Bowl berth. In an alternative universe, say the Cowboys win the NFC, how would have San Diego matched up against Dallas? And could the Bolts have won? Pick 'em, pal.
What year are you talking about? Are you talking about the year the Chargers went to the Super Bowl, or are we talking about the Chargers this year versus the Cowboys this year? I need clarification there. Tim, what era of Cowboy football or Charger football are you talking about? If we're just talking about Justin Herbert and this Charger football team versus Dallas, Dallas needs to find its running game. And, the fact that they're going to give the ball back to an old guy like Ezekiel Elliott after letting him go a year ago, and now they brought him back and he's their starter. The fact you don't have CeeDee Lamb and that they need to solve that situation. They got a lot of injuries. They never replaced their inside linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch, who had the neck surgery that ended his career. So Dallas is not, it's been a long time since Dallas won the Super Bowl too. So, I think Dak Prescott versus Justin Herbert would be a fun game to watch, but I don't think the supporting cast is real Super Bowl quality right now.
Well, even going back to 95, I mean, Dallas was hella good back then. I mean, wasn't that Barry Switzer back by that time?
Switzer, I think, was gone by that point. Switzer, Jimmy Johnson to Switzer, I think was right in the point that I was coming in. And Aikman had just come on board, and boy, they were miserable. My first year as a voice of the Chargers, they had Michael Irvin, and Troy Aikman, I think, went 1-15 his first year. I mean, they were really down, but it took time. And then Jimmy drafted really well, though Jerry Jones said he was the one that picked the players. Jimmy coached them up, and they got real good, and they had that nice run, and they obviously won a Super Bowl. And then when Jimmy went through the divorce with Jerry, Switzer came in, and Switzer won again with Jimmy Johnson's players, and then it kind of went sideways on him, and then Switzer wound up getting taken out.
I love the whole Stephen A. Smith bit where he gives Cowboy fans a hard time, and because, Cowboys, America's team and all that, I just like it to see them struggle, but who knows? I mean, Chargers, Cowboys this year, that would be a kind of a fun game.
It'd be a fun game
if
but
they played.
They're not going to play in the Super Bowl. Trust me.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Not this time. Thank you. Go next question.
Okay, this next one's from Chris, and Chris likes to channel the Hacksaw Chick. So let's have some fun with this. Saw, you are bleeping brilliant.
Agree.
And we need your insight on this incredibly important topic. It has become obvious, much like you, that Dylan Cease's dominance has everything to do with his immaculate mustache. Please give your 2 cents into the power of the mustache and how it has enabled you to dominate sports talk for decades.
Preller has a mustache. I texted him and said, listen, if you need some advice on this, let me know. I haven't heard back from him on that. But now the Cease, tell you what, this is the brilliance of the pitching coach. And I said, if there's an intangible MVP, Chris, on the Padres, it's what Ruben Niebla has done with a whole bunch of people, including Dylan Cease. He had that nice start, and then he had 11 bad starts in a row. I say, what the hell has happened to him? And that's why you have video, and that's why you study, and that's why you have analytics. And they found out, or at least they theorized, that Dylan Cease, as he was doing his windup, was holding the glove on the ball out here, and he was tipping pitches. So they relocated, and I think it's very hard to change your mechanics, but they relocated him in his stretch, glove, hand, ball in the glove next to the body. And when he makes his stride to the plate, he does not decoy anything out. You don't know what's coming because you can't see the hand. The hand's not out here until it's going forward to pitch. That's Ruben Niebla citing something in video and reinventing this guy. And Niebla's done a pretty good job with a whole bunch of other people too. I got to believe the success of Adrian Morion as a one-inning setup guy is the end result of Ruben convincing his kid inside, this is how you have to think, and this is what you need to do with your pitchers. And obviously he took the refugee pitcher from Japan, and Robert Suarez is one of the top closers in Major League Baseball because they worked on mechanics and delivery and repetition of mechanics and arm slot repetition. That's all from the pitching coach. That pitching coach done a hell of a job. But yeah, I concur with you. I think A.J. Preller's mustache is kind of weak. And Cease, hey, some guys can grow mustaches and be well, and others can't and still be well.
Cease has got a great mustache, yeah. I think. But, Ruben Niebla, obviously fantastic. Did you see the interview where they were talking to Xander Bogaerts, and he was talking previously to Martin Perez before he came over and said, you go talk to Ruben Niebla. He knows everything. Listen to what he has to say.
Well, one start in, he pitched pretty well for a start, but this guy had an ERA of 5.62 in Pittsburgh, and this is a guy that Texas got rid of, and when Texas didn't have enough pitchers. So, they're all projects. You got to stay on them, you got to work with them, and you got to help them with their confidence, and you solve their X and O's or their mechanical flaws. You can make them legitimate pitchers. I mean, being able to throw 98 is one thing, but being able to throw it consistently and locate it consistently and then locate all the other pitches consistently and repeat your mechanics, that's the whole bloody thing. I pitched in high school, and I was all over the place when I got out of sync. So I understand that. My dad was a pitcher. So I understand mechanics and slot and all that. And can you imagine with the amount of money that's on the line that these guys can make and the velocity and the wide variety of pitches they're throwing, not getting out of sync? You get out of sync, it's like the game is foreign to you and you can't get it back.
Yeah.
So that's why you need great pitching coaches.
Just to go back to the mustache, as long as I've known you or seen you, you have always had a mustache. So when did you first grow the mustache and become a part of the Hacksaw brand?
Long hair and Fu Manchu mustaches were part of the culture in hockey. And I grew a mustache almost immediately. I only shaved it one time. This had to be 1982, maybe 1983. Shaved it one time, walked around the corner of the kitchen. My wife almost dropped the dish. She didn't even recognize me. So I decided to grow it back, and I've had it ever since. So, but it was a hockey thing back then when everybody had long hair and everybody had Fu Manchus and all that.
Right on. I like that. I like that story. Let's move on here. Let's go to John. He says, God, the Chargers even chargered hiring Harbaugh. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving Spanos.
Well, Spanos gets whatever he deserves. But, I don't know who to believe. I just have a hard time buying the sales pitch from Harbaugh that I knew nothing. Come on. You're the head coach of one of the greatest college football programs. Head coaches are control freaks, John. They handle everything. They know anything and everything, and there should be no surprises within that program. You didn't know about Connor Stallions? You didn't know about schemes and what your coordinators were presenting in game plans, and where the hell did this come from? Well, maybe your coordinator got some inside data from Connor Stallions. And the fact that the NCAA said this 16-page document is all truthful. This is all the data. So you're going to believe us and the investigations we had that the coaches who testified to us and have been suspended, or you're going to believe him and the statement he made at the Charger facility. So story still to be told. At the end of the day, who's telling the truth and who's the liar? I don't think it matters because he's never going back to college football at age 60 anyhow, but it does besmirch his credibility a little bit.
So let's pretend in an alternative universe. Well, first of all, I think Harbaugh must have known, but let's just pretend that he didn't know. Okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But at some point, he must have discovered it before the NCAA got wind of it. Can you imagine in that alternative universe that a college football coach in the Big Ten, national champion favorite, would come clean and say, hey, we just discovered internally one of our coaches was stealing, video from this other team, and then let the chips fall where they may? I could never imagine that happening.
It'd be hard for me to believe. Now, the only thing that I can imagine is these coordinators knew,
of course,
and they got the inside information. So they walked to Harbaugh and says, this is the game plan we're going to put in when we play Iowa. And Harbaugh says, okay. And we go from there. So is it conceivable he didn't know that Connor Stallions was giving inside information on signal calls to the coordinator, Sharon Moore, the offensive guy, or to Jess Minter, the defensive coordinator? I find that hard to believe because Minter is his right-hand man with the Chargers right now. So still a lot here that's got to be sifted through. I just have a hard time buying that he didn't know. And if he's innocent, why wouldn't you turn over your cell phone? Because all the other coaches had to forfeit their cell phones. Michigan did not discipline Harbaugh. The NCAA did. This story's not complete.
Does this kind of remind you of the Pete Carroll deal when he left SC to go to Seattle?
Except that he never got dragged into this NCAA mess in Reggie Bush. He cooperated. It's not like he stonewalled them like Harbaugh stonewalled them, refused to meet with them, refused to talk to them, refused to turn over the inside information in a cell phone. That's where the other coaches were forced to cooperate. They did turn it over, and they were suspended. So tough call. He's got more to worry about right now. He's got a quarterback that's hurt with the Bolts. That's a big story.
Well, think about if you're a Michigan fan, because they went through all this in the 90s with the basketball team,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're going through it with the football team. So, Big Blue.
On we go. Next question.
On we go. Let's go to Callan. I'm of the belief that the final week of the season could be like 1996, where the division title and one of the wild cards are all up for grabs. What memories do you have of the 96 Padres team?
Padres, Dodgers. I mean, beating the Dodgers, Chris Gwynn's big hit.
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn doing what Tony Gwynn always did. That has a lot to say. And the Padres, they've been to 2 World Series, even though facing the Tigers and then getting swept by the Yankees in 4 straight was not easy to accept. But winning in crunch time at the end of the season, especially in the other guy's yard or against the enemy being the Dodgers. So this thing, there's a lot of baseball still to be played. That's why this 15-game stretch against the have-nots in baseball was critical. As we started this podcast, the Padres had just been given a gift victory by the Pirates, who are just unraveling. The Padres are 2.5 games out of first place.
Wow.
As of finishing this series in Pittsburgh. Who could have consumed that a month ago when they were 9 back? I mean, they've made up an awful lot. Now, that being said, let's be real honest here, Callum. Dodgers are getting injured guys back, and we'll just have to see. Mookie Betts is going to be back by the first of the week. Muncy may not be far behind. Yamamoto says it'll take me 1 rehab start to be back in the rotation. So the guys who were injured that have kind of led to this downfall of the Dodgers, I kept saying, how long before the Dodgers tumble? Well, they've tumbled now, and the lead is down to 2.5, but LA's going to get some guys back. So we get a lot of games to be played, a lot of baseball they play, but you can't catch them unless you're on a hot streak, and they're on a damn hot streak right now. That's for certain.
Oh, it's great. As a Padre fan, I'm loving it. But to Callan's point, if you look at the end of the season for the Padres, they finish on the road in LA and then on the road in Arizona.
Yep.
And so, yeah, this could be a crazy situation. But I got to comment on the Chris Gwynn thing, because I remember 1996, I was in Qualcomm Stadium listening to you doing the play-by-play, and the whole stadium erupted when Chris Gwynn hit that ball. And it was kind of crazy because we were watching one game and listening to another game.
And he did that in Dodger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just amazing. And again, Long Beach kid doing it against favorite team, Dodgers. Oh.
But the other part of the story was, didn't Stan Humphries fumble the snap because he was distracted from the noise?
Yeah.
So that's just all part of the lore of the whole thing, which is just great.
Pennant races are great, just like the race to the playoffs in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, here, let's go to 4RXLA. He goes, yeah, the other Big Ten schools have non-conference cupcakes on their schedule. Alabama is the king of cupcake schedules.
Yeah, but this is such a traditional rivalry, USC Notre Dame. But then again, USC didn't give a damn about the rivalry, and the history of the Pac-12 conference has been in place since 1915. It's just sad. I'm going to be interested to see how they do, because they're going into Big Ten country, and Big Ten country's got 4 or 5 real power football teams. And, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are the elite right now. But I'll guarantee you, a game at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin in fall afternoon, that's a tough-ass place to play. And going to Iowa plays rock'em sock'em football there in Iowa City. That's not going to be easy. So there's a lot of tough games they're going to have to play. And, obviously they got to play Oregon and Washington somewhere in the mix of this schedule going forward. So I just think USC, UCLA, and the travel is going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating to see how they perform, all 4 of those Pac-12 schools. But there are still a few weak teams in the Big Ten.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
So what would it be, like Rutgers or
Northwestern? I mean, some of those guys have been down.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they can't come back.
But would you think of a game like SC against Rutgers? Is that a cupcake game, even if it's an in-conference game?
Yeah. USC, Maryland is not what Maryland has been in different spurts in their era. I don't know where PJ Flick is in Minnesota. They had a good first season, did not play well second season. So, yeah, are there some lower echelon teams in the Big Ten? Sure, just like playing Oregon State, Washington State, the bottom of the pack in the Pac-12. But the travel thing to me that's monstrous. You travel 22,000 miles in a 10 or 11 week span in football. That's hard.
We were just talking about jet lag last week.
Oh,
from your
big time
flight.
jet lag.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a mess. Now, Notre Dame, are they still independent or are they playing in a conference now?
No, they're independent.
Okay.
No, but they do have a linkage to the ACC.
That's what it is.
And it's called, correct phraseology is alliance.
Okay.
But no, they're lifetime independents. And it's too bad if this rivalry is going to evaporate. And that's what Lincoln Riley said this week, that we have to reconstruct our non-conference. We just have to make room for Tulsa. That's all there is to it. Yeah, break.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Robert. And he says, hi, Lee and John. With the week Jackson Merrill has had, is back into the lead for the Rookie of the Year. And forget Paul Skeens. Second, is there a way to listen to some of your classic interviews? Thanks, Bob.
That's unfortunately, I don't think so. I kept some of my archives, but I couldn't keep everything when I was bought out at 690 and then at 1090. And I'm not mystical in terms of how mechanically, technologically you transfer things. I just never did it. I didn't have anybody to help me do it. So most of those interviews I think are pretty much gone by the board, but the memories of the interviews are still there. It's too bad that the Padres missed Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller, who are really 1 and 2 in the Pittsburgh rotation. But, Buccos come back out here. So they may get a chance to go against one of those guys when they come back in starting next Monday, when the Padres come back play the Pirates in the homestand. Because Skeens is really fun to watch. I mean, that'd be fun to see Skeens against Machado and Skeens against these other guys, because he's pitched really well.
Did you like that at bat between Aroldis Chapman and Manny Machado yesterday? Wasn't that something?
I mean, the clock said 105. I don't know if it was 105, but Manny was startled at what he saw. The snap and the crackle of Aroldis Chapman throwing that. I thought to myself coming over here today, because I sat there and I watched the end, and Bednar self-destructed for the second game in a row. If Bednar is struggling with a 5.17 ERA as your closer, why is not Chapman the closer right now when Bednar is going through some tough times? But poor Pittsburgh. I mean, they got the air taken out of the balloon in this 3-game series by the Padres. And Pittsburgh played really poor. I mean, Rowdy Tellez may hit some balls out of the stadium, but boy, he's detrimental. He's like a parking traffic pylon at first base. You can't get to anything that's hit. And I was very disappointed in Cabran Hayes. He's the son of Charlie Hayes, former Giants third baseman. He didn't play very good defensively either. Pittsburgh just didn't look like the same team.
There's been so many great Pittsburgh teams back in the day.
Sure.
We can remember all the names.
We are family.
Oh, yeah. But I just want to say Jackson Merrill has shown us so much. I mean, this kid is unbelievable. What's your take on the whole angle of Paul Skeens is a pitcher and only pitches once every 5 days, where Merrill is an everyday guy? Do you think that could give Merrill an edge in the Rookie of the Year vote?
I think there's also an intangible. The Padres are a playoff team, and Pittsburgh is going home October 1st because they're not ready yet to be a true playoff team. I think that's in the equation. But, I mean, if Merrill pushes this thing and stays above 300, and he's hit a pile of home runs here wrapped around both sides of the All-Star game, he's got to be the National League Rookie of the Year, because he's playing every minute of every inning, and he's making all kinds of plays. He even helped the damn grounds crew the other night when he was standing in center field on the water track, and he's waving at him. And did you see the video? Yeah. He's waving at him. He says, "Hey, there's water here."
Yeah, he was like going to dive in.
He's going to dive in. Great kid. Stage is not too big for him. So, no, he's got to be the Rookie of the Year.
Well, do you think Skeens has a shot at the Cy Young?
No, he hasn't. He has not pitched enough.
Right.
So, I mean, it was 5-1, I believe, as a starter. I mean, there's no doubt that he's got tremendous velocity and he strikes a lot of batters out. And they brought him along slowly. They let him pitch 5 and 6 innings, and they let him extend out to 7 or 8. And he's gotten to the 9th, I think, one time. But, unless he's making 25 starts, I can't see him being Rookie of the Year or MVP. Well,
back in the day in the 90s, when you're doing all those interviews on 690, that was before the internet. So now, see, we can do this sort of thing. It gets loaded up to YouTube and it's there in perpetuity. But what you were probably walking out of 690 with what reels of tape
I did.
and how are you going to convert that and what a pain in the neck it is to manage.
I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't have time to do it. And I was
Yeah.
just not interested in doing it at
Well,
that
you were
point.
probably bitter about all that.
No,
too.
I was just disappointed the way it ended, but that's life in broadcasting today. I had a great run. I did sports talk for 28 years on 690 and then 1090, and it just changed, landscape changed, and you have to accept what is. And then I vaulted off and started to do TV, and I made all these contacts at Sirius XM, and I did 3 years of weekends on the baseball channel, which was really kind of cool, and ventured off and got the chance to do some part-time TV here. And then all of a sudden we're doing this website, and then we're doing this podcast. So we keep on doing what we do best. And I still have my Royal Manual typewriter in my garage.
What a career. I mean, seriously, what a career. It's unbelievable. Let's go here to some guys are reminiscing about the Padres. Rap Album Depot says the 96 Padres had a great team with the 96 NL MVP Ken Caminiti, along with Hall of Famers Tony Gwynn and Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, they really did. And we went through a pretty good era there from 1994 on. And prior to that, obviously the Padres of the Garvey era and what they did get into the World Series against the Tigers. But that was a special group of personalities. I thought what Kevin Towers and Larry Lucchino had been able to put together, and kind of a unique manager. I knew of Bruce Bochy. He was a backup catcher. I never thought of Bruce Bochy of being some erudite, smart baseball guy. And then I interacted with him and said, man, he's down home, but he knows baseball. He knows how to handle players. And all this from a backup catcher. I used to joke with him. I said, last time I talked to him a couple of years ago, I ran into him down here and I said, backup catcher going to the Hall of Fame. Can't believe that. 3 rings. That's so cool.
Well, 4 if you count Texas.
Yes.
Right? I mean, yeah, what a career he's had. I mean, and I remember when the Padres got rid of Bochy because it was the new ownership and they wanted to turn the page. I mean, he got snapped up just like that.
Just like after he decided, I want to do this again, he got snapped up again by Texas. And look what they did last year. Now, he and Chris Young have just been crushed by pitching staff injuries, just nonstop. And Seager's been in and out of the lineup, and Adolis Garcia, the young power hitting outfielder, was hurt. So this year goes down as just a medical mishap as to why they couldn't get back there. And they've spent a lot of money, and they got a lot of good players. But if you don't have your pitching staff healthy, and they lost everybody really early. Actually, them and Houston between them, that's more quality starting pitching on the disabled list with surgeries than I think I've seen anywhere.
Amazing what they're going through. But Boch, he used to live about a block from here.
Sure.
And so I'd see him out there walking the dog, doing different things. Just a great guy, so awesome.
Good run.
Okay, let's go here. Again, people reminiscing about the Chargers too. Force Ghost Fabio says the 94 San Diego versus the Dallas team that lost to San Francisco 38-21 in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that would have been a tough matchup.
Yeah. But the Chargers, I'm not going to say the Chargers are living on borrowed time. They were just not equal to what the 49ers were come Super Bowl Sunday. It's just, there was way too much firepower. And San Francisco had a good defense. And San Francisco had a phenomenal offense. And the Chargers, they got in a hole and they never got caught up in that game. And the Chargers, for an AFC team, were pretty damn good in the AFC. But the NFC was just a different makeup, different style of football. And Steve Young was so dynamic as a quarterback, and they could run the ball, they could throw the ball, they could throw to everybody and just make a lot of plays. I mean, George Seifert had a really gifted offensive football team, and the Chargers had to work really hard to get where they got. And it wasn't easy. I mean, they could have lost that playoff game at home to Miami in the mud, and they won it. And I thought they were going to lose to the Steelers at Three Rivers, and they hung in there till they made enough plays, and they finally won the AFC Championship game over Cowher and the Steelers. But they were not on the same plane, talent-wise, with the 49ers of Steve Young.
Just great memories of that time, isn't it? I mean, just the energy in San Diego, and everyone was fired up, and you were right there in the middle of it all.
It was pretty electric. And I tell people all the time, the journey. You remember the journey and the games of the journey that got you to Super Bowl Sunday. And the community has kind of forgotten this team went to the Super Bowl. But I have to remind people, well, that was a great run, and beating the Steelers and beating the Chiefs at Arrowhead and beating winning up in Seattle when we were really struggling, looked like we were going to be in big trouble. Those, beating the damn Raiders. Those are the things I remember, was the journey to get to Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday didn't work out as we had all hoped it would, but it was the journey to get there, which that's what I remember forever. And what I hope the community remembers. And I hope as we get to the 30th anniversary of that Super Bowl run, people will remember that team and those coaches and those players.
Yeah, that was a special run. And let's move on. Jason actually has a comment on this. He says the 94 Chargers would have matched up way better against the Cowboys and the Niners.
Well, I don't know anybody who's going to match up with the 49ers. I mean, there was just so much firepower. So, and again, Dallas had great people. I mean, Dallas had Aikman, and Dallas had still Michael Irvin, and Dallas had Emmitt Smith, and that was great. And I got to see the Cowboys when those guys were just getting there, and Dallas was really bad. What Jerry Jones inherited when he bought the team, was terrible. It was an old team without many players, and it took them a couple of drafts. But they made the Herschel Walker trade with Minnesota that gave them the assets to be able to go get Michael Irvin and get Aikman and Emmitt Smith, and then the pass rushers and there's offensive linemen that don't get a lot of. Those are not sexy names, but those are really good football players. So I mean, Dallas did it by. Was it an 11-for-1 trade, I think, with Herschel Walker, Minnesota?
Something like that.
I mean, he stockpiled so many draft picks over the coming years. And then Jimmy Johnson, brilliant guy, took some of those draft picks and made more trades and got more picks and players back. So Dallas became, in essence, a 3-time Super Bowl champion under Jimmy Johnson and what he then handed over to Barry Switzer. Okay, a couple more here before we go to social media.
Well, I got one question, though.
You always got questions.
Yeah. You mentioned Troy Aikman. What's going on with this whole Troy Aikman, Lamar Jackson, number 8 thing? Are you following that?
I haven't paid much attention to it. It's not who's the better player in uniform number 8. And
are they trying to get like the copyright to the number? I can't figure out.
I think somebody was trying to get a copyright thing, and Aikman said, "No, you can't do that. 8 is my number too."
Okay. All right. Let's go here. Do a couple of social medias, and here's the haters. We're going to come out for this one. Yeah. It says this is from Herbert talking about if the Dodgers can win the NL West. Finally, something good comes out of your mouth. I respect your knowledge, but you're such a hater.
Am I a hater because of my critique of the Dodgers, or am I a hater directed towards the Padres? You have to inform me where I'm a hater. If I'm talking about defending Dave Roberts, is this his fault, or people above him his fault, or just bad luck because of the injuries his fault? So please, if Herbert, if you're going to critique the host, tell me where I'm a hater. Am I hating on the Dodgers? Or am I hating on the Padres? Because I get it from both sides of the street on a continual basis. He's your best friend. You tell me what he means.
Well, it's true that the Padre fans and Dodger fans are both convinced that you hate them both, and that you're negative. But you know what I think is what a big part of this is that a lot of the media in Southern California are real soft.
Cheerleaders.
Yeah, and so you like Howard Cosell, tell it like it is, and so I think that kind of throws some people here in Southern California.
Well, up until right now, the Padres have underachieved. Now the Padres are really rocking and rolling. I can't say the Dodgers underachieved. They've won 8 division titles in a row. Has the World Series been kind of tough? Yeah. Have the mistakes made in handling the pitching been a problem? Yeah, it has. Are the mistakes Dave Roberts' fault, or because of the piece of paper the analytical guys give them from upstairs that say this is what we recommend you do in certain situations in the World Series? So I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just presenting the facts as I view them. And I guess if that's a negative, then I guess you view me as a hater. But I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just giving you the facts with my opinions attached to the facts.
One man's opinion.
When you get your own podcast, you can have your own opinions and do your podcast the way you wish.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's get it. Here's a Charger comment from Conrad. Chargers are going to be last place in the AFC West. Also looking forward to the Raiders kicking their ass week 1. Go Rams.
I don't know who your quarterback is. I'll tell you, I'd rather have this quarterback, Justin Herbert, than your quarterback. That's a big issue. But injuries change everything in the league. I mean, what you have on your roster opening day in September may not be what's there October 15th, and might not be there when the playoffs begin. So it's a little early to say somebody's going to kick somebody's ass. I'd much rather have the Charger quarterback than the Raiders quarterbacks right now, and you got to have quarterbacks in this league to survive.
See, this is Raider Nation, and they're all fired up, and they're still, talking about the 63-17 game or whatever that was. That was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And just like the years you won, the dented trophy is dusty as the back of your closet. I'm sorry, it doesn't mean anything anymore to me. Maybe to you, yes, it doesn't mean anything to me. Talking about the Raiders Super Bowl trophies.
You got to go way back. I mean, it's like the Plunkett era when they last won a World Series or a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, that was a few third downs and longs ago.
I'd say. Okay, let's get another one here. Let's go Dodgers again. This is from Abuela. He says, half the team is in AAA right now. Hopefully guys come back before they lose the lead.
Half the team has been on rehab assignments. Yeah, we will see this push. Mookie Betts will be back, might be back as early as Monday. I don't know how far down the road Max Muncy is right now, but that was the genesis of the trades to get Rosario and get some of these other super multi-position guys to come into play. But the pitching staff, if Yamamoto comes back after one rehab start and he says all he needs is one, give me 5 innings, I'll be okay. He comes back, and you got Kershaw, who you're going to have to manage. But Kershaw's last outing was pretty doggone impressive. He was decent. He didn't have velocity. But, if they can get this rotation back in place and you get Mookie back, then maybe your lineup takes on a different dimension. Ohtani looks very weary to me. When would you ever think you and I to have a conversation about Ohtani being 0 for 15? Luis Ariz of the Padres, I don't know if anyone's paying any attention. I mean, he's dropped off a lot. I think he was in I want to say 3 for 17 hole coming through this Pittsburgh series, and his cold spell had gone actually back farther than that to the Colorado series. So it's a grind, and some of these guys are showing some wear and tear.
Well, what about Walker Buehler? I mean, do you think he's ever going to come back to the old Walker Buehler?
He just may need the full off season. I mean, he's had 2 rehab outings at Oak City. Neither one was dominant. He's staying in Oklahoma City. He may be throwing another one tonight or maybe tomorrow. So we just don't know. It takes time to come back from this adversity, and he doesn't look like he's the same pitcher now. Now, an off-season weight training with more work with specialists, maybe they find his velocity and they find his location, but he hasn't shown it at Oklahoma City at all.
Weren't you saying that Mookie, when he comes back, he's going to go back to shortstop?
The Dodgers said that. I was told that they were going to probably put him in right field because they've got guys to play shortstop, but they announced yesterday Mookie's going to bat second, not first. Ohtani will stay lead off, and Mookie's going back to shortstop. I said, wow, that's different because other people are saying he's going to right field for a wear and tear factor.
Well, who else would play short? Because Gavin Lux is like stinking up the joint.
He's hitting, though.
Yeah.
Lux is hitting much better now than he hit the first half of the season. Now, I think he's got issues with confidence throwing the baseball, but evidently Mookie's going to be the shortstop.
Mookie can do everything, can he? I mean, that guy's unbelievable.
So we'll see. Dodgers, Calvary's coming. Some are there, and obviously getting Jack Flaherty at the trade deadline is a huge impetus. Now you got Glass now, and you got Jack Flaherty, and you got Yamamoto, and then suddenly things look and feel very different, at least on the mound. And then if Kershaw can be half of what Kershaw was, if you can give him 4 or 5 quality innings, now suddenly your rotation looks very different.
That last week of the season is going to be amazing.
Oh, I concur. Well, the whole last month of the season, I mean, a crush is on. It's really something. The fact that lead is now down to 2.5 as of this moment, wow. Because it was 9 games.
The Phillies knocked around the Dodgers last night, too.
And the Phillies are beat up. The Phillies look gassed. I mean, who would ever think, in speaking of conversations, it would be talking about Bryce Harper being 1 for 34. He looks gassed. So, but there's still games to be played. It's going to be push.
You want to sneak one more in?
One more.
Okay, let's do a little Padres here. This is on your call about Ruben Niebla as the team MVP. And Caesar says, this is awesome. Ruben deserves so many of these shout outs. I was thrilled when the Padres hired him, and I'm really proud of him.
He had a good rep in Cleveland. Why Cleveland let him get away? That's kind of a surprise, but that's built on relationships, and Preller knows people all over the place, and Preller's got different relationships with different people, and they stole this guy. Just like they stole, I think it's Victor Rodriguez. He's kind of an unknown. He's kind of a hitting consultant. His team's got 28 come-from-behind wins. This team, this batting order, which last year couldn't win extra inning games, and who was miserable in crunch time. So Rodriguez has had some input here, but I think Niebla's acumen in terms of messaging to pitchers and his ability to go on that computer and they watch video till their eyes fall out and to find the minutest flaws in these pitchers, it's made a big difference. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this extended Thursday podcast.